Stop. Before you log into your retirement account portal today, before you increase your automatic contribution, and before you congratulate yourself on your financial discipline, just stop for a moment and hear this out. I know exactly how that sounds. Maxing out your 401k is practically the universal gospel of personal finance in America. Every financial magazine, every workplace benefit seminar, every well-meaning financial advisor, and every parent who has ever sat across the kitchen table with you and talked about money has probably delivered the same message: max it out as fast as you can, as early as you can, and let compound interest do the heavy lifting for you. And I am genuinely not here to tell you that saving for retirement is wrong. It is essential. Retirement savings matter enormously. But here is the uncomfortable truth that most financial content refuses to say plainly. For tens of millions of Americans, maxing the 401k before doing one specific thing first is not just inefficient. It is actively destroying their financial progress in ways they will never trace back to this one mistake. The damage is real, measurable, and quietly compounding against them right now. And the most frustrating part: the system surrounding this advice is structured in a way that makes the error nearly invisible. If you are carrying credit card debt at this moment, if your emergency fund is thinner than it should be, if you have never seriously looked at the fees inside your 401k plan, or if you have never heard of the account that is actually more tax efficient than your 401k for most people, then you are likely making an expensive, well-intentioned mistake. Today, I am going to show you exactly what that mistake costs, name who profits from it, and give you the precise sequencing order that changes everything. This is the conversation no one in the financial industry has a strong incentive to start with you. So I will start it. Now let us be completely fair to where this belief came from, because it did not fall out of the sky. The advice to max out your 401k is not a lie. It is an oversimplification that became cultural shorthand. And for a very specific subset of Americans in very specific financial circumstances, it genuinely is the right call. The problem is that the retirement industry and the financial media applied this advice universally, to everyone, at every income level, in every financial situation, and that one-size-fits-all framing has cost American households an almost incalculable amount of wealth when applied at the wrong time in the wrong sequence. Think about where this advice was born. In the early 1980s, corporate pensions began disappearing and 401k plans emerged as their replacement. Workers were suddenly responsible for funding their own retirements. Most had no financial education whatsoever, and the financial industry needed a simple, memorable message to get people saving at all. Max it out was that message. And relative to the alternative, which was spending every dollar and saving nothing, the message worked. It genuinely helped a generation of Americans who might otherwise have arrived at retirement with nothing. By the 1990s and into the 2000s, the message calcified into absolute doctrine. Max it out. Always. Every year. No exceptions. It became a badge of financial responsibility. You probably heard it from your first employer during your onboarding paperwork. You may have read it in every personal finance article you ever clicked. You may have believed it was the single most important financial move a working American could make. And statistically, this advice spread everywhere. According to data from Fidelity Investments, average employee contribution rates have risen steadily, with millions now contributing at or near the federal legal limit. The advice has been absorbed by an entire generation. It came from sources that sounded authoritative, so of course you followed it. Of course you did. You were supposed to. But here is where the math turns brutal. And I want you to sit with this carefully, because this is the exact part that gets skipped in almost every mainstream version of this conversation. Imagine you are earning $80,000 a year, and you are doing what you have been told, maxing out your 401k. In 2025, the federal contribution limit sits at $23,500. That is a significant sum to pull out of your annual income, and making that contribution every year feels responsible, disciplined, even admirable. Now imagine, at the same time, you are carrying $6,000 in credit card debt. You are not unusual. According to industry data, the average American household with at least one credit card carries a balance. And according to data from the Federal Reserve, the average credit card annual percentage rate, or APR, in late 2024 was hovering right around 20 to 21%. Some cards are higher. So while you're pouring money into a 401k plan that historically averages somewhere between 6 and 8% annual return depending on your fund allocation, you are simultaneously paying 20 or 21% guaranteed, compounding interest on every dollar of that credit card balance. That is not a strategic trade-off. That is a mathematical loss wearing the costume of a sound financial decision. Let me make the numbers concrete. If you carry $6,000 at 20% annual interest for a full year, you pay approximately $1,200 in interest charges. That $1,200 is gone permanently. It is not growing anywhere, it is not working toward your retirement, and it is not contributing to your financial security in any way. But here is the insight that changes everything. The $6,000 you could have used to eliminate that debt entirely would have produced a guaranteed 20% return on itself, because paying off 20% interest debt is mathematically identical to earning a 20% guaranteed return on investment. There is no investment product, no retirement account, no market vehicle that delivers a guaranteed 20% annual return. Not your 401k, not an index fund, not real estate, nothing. And yet millions of Americans are choosing to fund a 7% expected return account while simultaneously paying a 20% guaranteed cost on debt they are carrying in the next tab over. Now stretch this over time. If someone carries moderate credit card debt for 5 years while also maxing their 401k instead of sequencing correctly, paying the debt first, then building the fund, then maximizing the account, the difference in net worth at the end of that 5 years is not symbolic. It is real, it is large, and it compounds forward into retirement. For someone who begins making the right sequencing decision at age 35 and carries it forward to retirement, financial planners and researchers have estimated the correctly sequenced approach can produce a 6-figure difference in final net worth simply from one change in order of operations. Not a change in income, not a change in lifestyle, just a change in sequence. And we have not even reached the most dangerous hidden cost yet, which is the emergency fund gap. If you do not have 3 to 6 months of essential living expenses sitting in a liquid, accessible savings account, then you are one bad event away from either going deeper into credit card debt or making an early withdrawal from your 401k. A single medical bill, a car transmission, a brief period of unemployment. Any of these events becomes a financial catastrophe in the absence of a properly funded emergency reserve. And early withdrawals from a 401k before age 59 and a half trigger a 10% penalty from the Internal Revenue Service, or IRS, on top of ordinary income taxes. If you are in a combined federal and state tax bracket of 30% plus the 10% penalty, that $10,000 emergency withdrawal nets you somewhere around $6,000 in your hand. You took $10,000 that was growing tax advantage for retirement, and the government gave you $6,000 in return. And the remaining $4,000 is gone forever, along with all of its future compounding value. Now here is the part nobody in the financial industry talks about loudly, because it requires naming who benefits from the current arrangement. Let me name them directly. The first beneficiary is the mutual fund industry. The investment options inside most employer 401k plans are not the low-cost index funds you might select on your own through a brokerage. They are typically a curated menu of actively managed funds with expense ratios ranging from 0.5% to over 1.5% annually. That gap in fees between what your plan charges and what you could access in a self-directed account compounds quietly over decades. Research from the Center for American Progress and others has estimated that a worker saving consistently over a 40-year career can lose a significant portion of their final account balance, potentially over $100,000 or more, purely from the fee differential inside a typical workplace plan. Those fees are disclosed in plan documents most people never read, and they are never mentioned in the max it out advice. The second beneficiary is the credit card industry. When someone is directing their maximum discretionary income into a locked retirement account while simultaneously carrying high-interest revolving debt, the credit card issuer collects interest month after month with complete reliability. The credit card industry and the retirement savings industry are rarely discussed in the same conversation, but from a household financial balance sheet perspective, they are directly connected. And the person who connects those two dots is the only one who loses by not connecting them. The third beneficiary is the category of financial advisor paid on a percentage of assets under management. Every dollar that flows into a 401k today is a potential future dollar they may manage for a fee. There is nothing villainous about this business model, but there is an inherent structural misalignment of incentives when they max it out no matter what. Advice consistently comes from the party whose income scales with the size of your investable balance. This is a documented feature of how most retail financial advice in America is structured. It is not a conspiracy. It is just an incentive. And incentives shape advice in ways that do not always align with your best interest. The research bears all of this out in ways that are hard to dismiss. According to the Federal Reserve's Survey of Consumer Finances, a substantial share of American households report that they would struggle to absorb an unexpected expense of $400 without borrowing or liquidating something. That number spans income brackets in ways that consistently surprise people. Americans earning $80,000 or even $100,000 a year report this vulnerability at higher rates than intuition would suggest, because high earners are often channeling discretionary income into retirement accounts while simultaneously carrying consumer debt and maintaining inadequate liquid reserves. The retirement balance grows. The financial resilience does not. Vanguard's annual How America Saves report, one of the most comprehensive data sets on American retirement behavior available, shows that while contribution rates have increased meaningfully over the past decade, median 401k account balances for households in the 35 to 44 age range remain well below the benchmarks that financial planners associate with on-track retirement readiness. People are contributing. The sequence of those contributions relative to debt and liquidity is generating less financial security than the contribution rate alone would suggest. And on the topic of the health savings account, which I am about to explain in detail, data from Devenir Research, which tracks the health savings account industry comprehensively, shows that despite tens of millions of Americans being eligible for this account through high-deductible health plan enrollment, a minority invest the funds inside the account rather than drawing them down for current medical expenses. This is significant because the health savings account is, in the informed judgment of most tax-aware financial planners, the single most tax-efficient savings vehicle available to working Americans, more efficient than the 401k by any comprehensive tax analysis. And most Americans are either underusing it or not using it at all because the max your 401k message is so dominant that it crowds out everything else. So what is the correct approach? What is the one thing you need to do before maxing the 401k? And what does the right order of operations actually look like? Here it is, laid out precisely. The order matters as much as the amounts. The first move is to contribute exactly enough to your 401k to capture every dollar of your employer's match. Not a dollar more yet, but absolutely not a dollar less. If your employer matches 50 cents per dollar up to 6% of your salary, you contribute 6%. If the match is a dollar for dollar up to 3%, you contribute 3%. The employer match is an immediate, guaranteed 100% or 50% return on your money the moment it hits the account, depending on your plan's match structure. Nothing in personal finance competes with that return. Capture it in full. Then stop additional contributions temporarily. The second move is to build your emergency fund to a true 3 to 6 months of essential monthly expenses. Not discretionary spending, but the actual non-negotiable monthly costs that keep your household running. This fund lives in a high-yield savings account at an FDIC-insured online bank where current rates have made it entirely possible to earn between 4 and 5% annually on money you are simply holding for protection. Your emergency fund should be working while it waits. Having this fund eliminates the primary scenario where someone is forced to either create new debt or make a costly early retirement account withdrawal when life happens. This fund does not feel exciting. It is not sexy, but it is the financial foundation that makes every other strategy in this video sustainable. The third move is to eliminate all high-interest consumer debt, meaning anything charging above roughly 7 or 8% annually. Before contributing a single dollar beyond the employer match to your 401k, use the debt avalanche approach. List every debt in order from highest interest rate to lowest. Direct all available extra cash to the top item and work down the list. At 20 to 21% interest on a typical credit card balance, every dollar you pay off delivers a guaranteed above-market return that no investment account in the world can match on a guaranteed basis. The fourth move, and this is where most Americans leave the most money behind, is to maximize the health savings account, or HSA, if you are enrolled in a qualifying high-deductible health plan. The HSA has a tax structure that no other account in the American tax code replicates. Contributions go in before taxes, reducing your taxable income dollar for dollar. The investments inside the account grow completely tax-free. Withdrawals used for qualified medical expenses, which will be enormous in retirement, come out completely tax-free as well. That is 3 layers of tax protection compared to the 401k's single layer of tax deferral. In 2025, you can contribute up to $4,300 as an individual or $8,550 for a family. If you invest those funds in low-cost index funds inside the HSA rather than spending the balance, you are building a dedicated pool of tax-free retirement healthcare money in the most efficient vehicle the tax code offers. The fifth move is to maximize your Roth Individual Retirement Account, or Roth IRA, before returning to the 401k. In 2025, you can contribute up to $7,000 if you are under 50, or $7,500 if you are 50 or older, provided your income falls within the qualifying range. The Roth IRA gives you tax-free growth and tax-free withdrawals in retirement, and crucially, your contributions can be withdrawn at any time without tax or penalty. That last feature makes the Roth IRA the most flexible retirement and secondary emergency tool available. After the HSA and Roth IRA are maxed, then, and only then, go back and take your 401k contribution to its federal maximum. This is the wealth sequencing order. It sounds simple because it is. What it is not is what most Americans have been taught. The conventional advice skips steps 2 through 5 and goes straight to max the 401k. That shortcut, taken across tens of millions of households over decades, represents a massive, ongoing, self-inflicted wealth transfer from American families to financial institutions that profit from the gap. Before we wrap up, I want to address the 3 objections I know are forming in your mind right now, because these come up every single time this conversation happens. The first objection is about the tax deduction. Surely it makes sense to reduce taxable income through 401k contributions even while carrying debt, right? Here is the honest math. If you are in the 22% federal tax bracket and you contribute $1,000 to your 401k, your tax savings is approximately $220. Meanwhile, if you are also carrying $1,000 of credit card debt at 20% interest for a year, you pay $200 in interest charges on it. The tax benefit and the interest cost nearly cancel each other out at 22%. And in higher tax states, or for people whose effective tax benefit is lower than their marginal rate would suggest, the credit card interest often wins by a margin. And that comparison does not yet include the fees inside the 401k plan, which quietly erode the tax benefit further over time. The math almost never favors carrying high-interest debt in exchange for a 401k tax deduction. Almost never. The second objection is psychological. What if I redirect from my 401k temporarily and never go back? This is a legitimate human concern, and the sequencing order is the answer to it. You are not abandoning the 401k. You are capping contributions at the match level while you execute a time-limited series of steps. Steps that for most people earning between $60,000 and $120,000 annually, given disciplined focus, can be completed in somewhere between 12 and 30 months. You set a written timeline, you set calendar reminders, and you return to the 401k on a specific date with a specific contribution rate increase already planned. Imperfect execution of the right sequence still outperforms perfect execution of the wrong one. The third objection comes from people whose employers offer no match at all. If that is your situation, the case for following this sequencing order becomes even stronger, not weaker. Without an employer match, there is no guaranteed immediate return inside the 401k that cannot be beat by paying off high-interest debt. In a no-match scenario, the HSA and Roth IRA should move ahead of the 401k entirely, not temporarily, but permanently in the sequencing priority, until those two accounts are maximized and the emergency fund is fully funded. The 401k may still be a useful vehicle for additional tax advantage savings above and beyond those priorities, but it should not be the first dollar in when there is no match to capture. Here is the bottom line, and I want you to hear this clearly. Maxing out your 401k is not a bad goal. It is a good goal applied at the wrong time for millions of Americans who are simultaneously carrying high-interest debt, living without a properly funded emergency reserve, and missing out on the more tax-efficient vehicles that the tax code makes available to them. The conventional wisdom is not wrong. It is critically, expensively incomplete. And the difference between the conventional sequence and the correct sequence, played out over a working lifetime, is not marginal. For the average American household, getting this order right is worth more than any single raise, bonus, or lucky investment will ever be. The single most important action step you can take today requires nothing except honesty and 10 minutes of your time. Pull up your financial picture right now. Look at your current 401k contribution rate and whether you are capturing the full employer match. Look at your emergency fund balance against your actual monthly essential expenses. Look at every debt you carry and the interest rate on each one. Look at whether your health insurance qualifies you for a health savings account. Map where you are in the sequencing order. Identify the first gap, then close it one step at a time starting this week. You now know something that most of the people working beside you and living next door to you have genuinely never been shown. That is not a small thing. That is a real, compounding financial advantage, and it starts today.